Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. We thank you for joining in today with us, and we really appreciate your presence into the interactive session. So as you are aware, we have gathered today for discussing testing strategies for e-commerce and social applications. This is an interactive session focusing on innovative ways to test your complete application ecosystem, along with third-party integrations, automation strategies, as well as delivering a tasteful user experience for all of your end users. We would be starting with uh, the agenda of the meeting today, and followed up by the entire presentation that would explain about approach and the best practices for user interface testing, which is an essential for e-commerce and social applications, automation, which is the need of the hour, and integration testing your applications with third-party apps, as well as delivering a delightful, fast, and effective application by testing and measuring your performance, load, and stress for the application. Just before we get further, I would give a quick introduction about Cygnet Infotech, myself, and my colleague here today who would be on the panel doing the discussion on the testing strategy. So Cygnet is an ISO 9001 and 2008 certified enterprise IT solutions company. We have been in an operation of delivering testing and test solutions for more than 12 plus years now. And we offer a variety of services and tools to assist organizations with their quality vision and application development. My name is Premal, and I'm take care of quality services, the professional services, and the consulting business for Cygnet. And I would be joined by my colleague today, who is Dakshesh, who takes care of technology operations and quality assurance operations at Cygnet Infotech. Our agenda for today is testing the user interface, discussing automation strategies, as well as discussing strategies for integration testing and performance improvement for a quality application. Just before we get started, let's talk about e-commerce, which is one of the most useful, or one of the most used ways of doing shopping in the recent times by users worldwide. From 1979, when Michael Aldrich invented online shopping and penned the concept of user sitting virtually any location and buying tools, has been delighting retail, services, products, and technology vendors worldwide. The industry got revolutionized when in 1990 Tim Berners wrote the first web browser at Next Computers. Not to mention the contribution by Jeff Bezos by launching Amazon.com in 1995, and the recent trends in 2012, where in US alone the online retail through the holiday sales crossed more than 33 billion, which was a year over year 13% above the industry's average. Today e-commerce is about billions of dollars of business. Social media is also in catching up with e-commerce. There are more than 6 billion users worldwide that connect to e-commerce or social applications every day through one or other means of reaching out to through internet. As we move forward, I would have Dakshesh explain and talk about the strategies, and followed up by a question and answer session that would allow every one of us to raise questions and get answers for our doubts. So let's look at the agenda, the first topic on our agenda, and have Dakshesh talk about the testing strategies. Thank you, everyone.
Hello everyone, this is Dakshesh. As Primal has just mentioned, the e-commerce business in its true terms has started going off the ground and it's reaching its uh, horizon. So the first thing when a user accesses a particular e-commerce site or a social application, the first thing that he notices is the user interface. So as part of our agenda, that's the first thing that we would like to talk about, because based on the user interface experience, people would judge the application on the first go. So what are the things that we could test as part of our user interface? The first thing people notice is the navigation and the workflow. When a customer wants to buy something, when a particular person accesses a particular site, they want to try out different pages in the application. They want to move around the application, find out different information related to the product, and see if particular information matches across the different pages that the user accesses. So that is the first thing we come across as a users, and as a tester, that is the first thing that we need to take care of, is the navigation and the workflow of the whole application. If we are able to successfully navigate through all the pages of the application successfully, it would be easier for the people to access the same application. Other thing to keep in mind while testing the application is the user interface. When we are, as we have mentioned, the e-commerce application may have a lot of different pages, starting from the product information, customer profile information, payment gateways. All these things are included as part of the e-commerce application. But when you talk about user interface, the user interface has to be consistent across all the different pages of the application, because that would give a customer a very high image. It would create a good image of the particular application in customer's mind. One of the other things that we have seen as part of testing e-commerce applications is portal administration. As the e-commerce applications or the social apps keep on changing based on daily needs, like product promotions and all those things. If I want to maintain my e-commerce portal application, as an administration also, I should have proper easy navigation for portal administration as well. Then only I will be able to implement certain things on the pages that I intend to implement those changes. So as a tester, we need to account for the portal administration interface as well. Other part of user interface testing is code compatibility and portability. When we talk about e-commerce application will and mostly be accessed on different computers, mobile devices, tablets, all those things. So when we are developing, sorry, just a second. When we are developing our application, we need to keep in mind that the code is easily portable and compatible on different environments, different devices, all those things. As a tester, we need to keep that in mind and test for the same thing across different devices, different operating systems, different browsers, all those things. So these are some of the nuggets to keep in mind while testing for the user interface. Keeping all those things in mind, I'll just give you a brief example of what a good user interface looks like and what a bad user interface looks like. So moving on to the next slide, if you look at this particular web page, it is basically an e-commerce application. It shows an information about shoes. But if you look at it properly, it doesn't give out all the information related to the shoes. Like, it doesn't give out the price information, it doesn't give out the category that belongs to, it doesn't give out different sizes that you would be able to find out on this particular page. So by testing, you can easily say that this is not a properly designed e-commerce page, e-commerce application. On the other side, if you look at the next image, it's the same e-commerce application selling the shoes. But if you look at the bottom, you can define different. You can find out the shoes based on different sizes, different category, based on different colors. And once you choose a particular shoe, it will give you information about the price and all those things. And on the top, all the different categories are defined based on everybody's needs. Like if I'm looking for handbags, then I could go search for handbags, and all this information is properly provided on this particular page. So when testing for such user interface, these are the things specifically for e-commerce we need to keep in mind as testers, that it should be easy to follow for user interface. Moving on, when we want to test about all the user interface that we already talked about, what are the testing strategies to keep in mind? Okay. E-commerce application can be accessed by anyone across the globe, and if you are specifically targeting global customers, then these are the things that we need to keep in mind when developing our test strategy. Initially, we have to come up with the matrix of test user profiles, keeping the target location, the culture, and age of the targeted customers in mind. This would be the first point to get started on the same thing. Apart from that, when we are talking about global customers, we may have differently abled people accessing our site, or other people who may not be able to recognize different aspects of our application. For us to test that, we have to create our test plan or test cases in such a way that we keep different compliance standards in mind. A couple of them we have mentioned as part of our presentation is Section 508 compliance, which deals with differently abled people, and W3C standard that talks about accessibility criteria. So when you're developing your test strategy or test cases, these are some of the things that you need to keep in mind while developing your test strategy. One of the most important aspects of testing for user experience is in the global usage of the application. People will be accessing the application from computers, from mobile phones, through tablets, even probably on other medias as well, through TVs as well. So if you look at the image on the right hand side, it shows the very good depiction of different user profiles accessing different applications on different devices and from different backgrounds. So it gives you an idea about what we need to keep in mind when developing our testing strategy for user experience. So these are, in a nutshell, what I could say is when you want to develop an outstanding e-commerce application, keeping all this testing nuggets in mind would help you go a long way. Okay, as we already talked about the user interface, how would we be able to test the user interface effectively? Because user interface may be changing based on daily requirement changes from our end customers. Okay, so the content itself may be changing, so we need to make sure as testers that a particular product or service is available based on or categorized according to its proper usage. Just to give you an example, for an electronic product, you can categorize the products by brands or by costs or by features. And across the different brands also you may have different features that are only available through in certain brands. So as a testers also we need to keep all these things in mind, and the testers should be able to test us as well as the actual customer should be able to test for any item based on search filters or the search engine optimization. We may, as a user, if I want to search for a certain product, I should be able to search for it based on certain filters that are provided by the application. And those filters may be depending on different algorithms as developed by the application developers. And there are different criteria involved as part of the search request. So we need to account for, when we are developing our test cases for searching, we need to account for all the different criteria, different algorithms that we are using, and possibly different user requests that we may come across. So testing a content is another important aspect of developing user interface, as it provides consistent approach for the application. Moving forward, we can achieve all these things that we talked about user interface with testing for functional as well as regression testing. But in this day and age, time is of essence for customer facing real-time applications, which may be changing, if not daily, then probably weekly, or based on the requirement changes that we receive from our end customers. So, and it basically requires that the best way to come across, finish our functional testing as well as user interface testing is to create a test suite for regression tests and test for continuous changes going forward. The way to achieve that is create an automation suite or automation framework that would help us achieve the target within stipulated time based on availability of our time as well. Okay, how would we be able to do the same using automation? Automation, if you want to implement automation, automation requires that the process must be in place for us to adequately identify our regression suites. Once we identify our regression suites for our business critical processes, it would be easier for us to start focusing on daily build automation, because that would give us a very good platform to build our application on, because it gives you daily information about what were the changes made and what were the issues that we found as testers. At the same time, you can also set up for continuous integration, which would help the developers and the testers whenever the application development team is making any changes and you have set up for continuous integration. It would be easier to start the automation regression suite. It will be executed, then suddenly all the reports will be generated and will be presented to proper people. So as a testers, it would be easier for us if we set up continuous integration so that the testing would become much easier and much faster. When we talk about e-commerce application, another important aspect is the localization or internationalization, for that matter, if you want to say it. That also would become much easier if we have the completely identified regression suite in place for automation testing, because that would be much faster if you want to do the same testing across different different locations. So that also you could automate using automation testing tools. Okay, how do we select, how do we implement our automation strategy? First of all is based on the application technology stack that we have. We can select the test tool based on available, there are a lot of test tools available in the market, and based on our requirements we can select a particular tool. Then we have to do basically a pilot product that will introduce automation as part of our organization and show the benefits of using test automation tools, and that would go a long way building the confidence developing the automation suite. Once that is successful, we can start the complete planning and design for the automation framework that we want to implement across our application. The automation framework is most important, and once you have a stable automation framework in place, you can completely automate your regression suite. After that, you can start the test execution. Test execution, once it's done, the reports will be presented and you can go through all the reports that are, the results report that are out there, and figure out if the application is behaving according to our requirements or not. So automation in a nutshell would help us achieve all this task in a quicker way. So these are some of the strategies that we need to keep in mind while developing automation for our e-commerce or social applications. The third is the integration testing for third-party application. E-commerce application or social applications are generally an amalgamation of different third-party tools combined into one user applicable application. So integration testing is one of the important aspects of e-commerce testing. And when you want to integrate different things at the same time, we need to test early in the development cycle. If we start doing that, we would be able to start identifying the issues early in the development phase, and we'll be able to fix those issues so that it would not create any downside impact. So as a tester, we need to start early in the development cycle, start preparing our test strategy, test plan, and test cases. And if early build is available to us, we need to start testing as well. When you integrate third-party application as part of your e-commerce application, it would be best for us if we start testing the third-party applications prior and post the integration with the main applications. What I mean by prior to integrating it with the main application is most of the third-party applications are tested by their own providers, but it would be best if you want to find out if it's actually going to work with our application or not. So prior to that, if you are able to test for the third-party applications in isolated environment, it would be best for us. And post-integration, obviously it would be helpful once we need to identify if the integration part itself is working successfully or not. So as a tester, you need to keep both the things in mind. We have to test for the third-party integration prior to integrating with the main application, as well as post the integration itself. Other thing, most of the e-commerce applications have social media applications built in as part of their sites or applications. We would believe that most of the social media applications would have been tested thoroughly by now. But as testers, we need to make sure that at least our application is sending the information properly over to those social media applications, and the social media applications or the social media is properly displaying our information, because we may feel like there will be no issues with this integration, but as per experience, people would say that we need to test for the same just to make sure that there are no unannounced issues identified at a later stage. When you want to test through all the different stages, when we want to test for e-commerce application, the first thing that we need to concentrate on testing for the business functionality. Because before testing for business functionality, if we start looking at other things, and if the business functionality itself is not working, it would not help our cause. So as testers, these are some of the building blocks that we need to build on. First of all, we need to identify our test cases for business functionality, then start concentrating on the user interface. As I mentioned, user interface itself is one of the biggest and most important aspect of testing an e-commerce application. Other important aspect is the search engine itself. When as a customer, I want to search for a certain product, if the search engine is properly implemented, then I would be able to do it easily with this filter criteria that I'm providing. But if the user is not able to search for the item that he or she is looking for, then they would not be willing to they would not be willing to look at any of the other features, even though we feel like that our application is the best out there in the market. So as a testers, all these are the building blocks that we need to follow as part of our testing strategy. Last but not the least is testing the add-ons like third-party ads or product promotions, or testing for customer feedback. We should have an area where the customer are able to provide the feedbacks as well. So this, what I would say, are the different testing stages for e-commerce application. Moving forward, we initially talked about individual testing of third-party application. Again, I would like to mention and emphasize that isolated testing for third-party applications or web services, APIs are a very important piece of the development process for an e-commerce application. Other thing to keep in mind is if the third-party application or a web service or API that we are using, if they are licensed to us, then there is no issue of connectivity because all those things will be hosted on our servers. But if we are getting the hosted service from the provider, then we need to test for the connectivity as well as part of our isolated testing, because that will make sure that the service is continuously available to us if our application calls for that API or web service. Some of the most important third-party applications available in the market are PayPal, Authorize.net, Google Checkout, Magento, UPS API, FedEx for that matter, for shipment APIs. So all these things are have been tested thoroughly by a lot of different vendors out there, as well as the service providers themselves. But it becomes our responsibility as testers to test for this in isolated environment to make sure that we are getting proper response at the proper time when we are integrating it with our application. Okay, we have already talked about different aspects of functional testing, automation testing, and integration testing. Our application looks very good, all the functionality is involved. But when you actually implement or when you actually go to production with your application, and when people start actually using your application, they might like a lot of different aspects of the application, and through the word of mouth, we will start catching on the different people would start accessing our application, and the traffic will improve. So at that particular moment of time, people will start experiencing, if a lot of people are accessing our application, people may start experiencing delay in response and all those things. So that's when performance testing comes into picture, because it is also one of the most important aspects of delivering a quality application. So when you look at the performance testing, what does it include? It basically starts with creating a performance plan based on identified performance requirements, and creating our test plan as part of our complete test strategy that we have defined. For social apps, other important things as part of performance testing is the installation time, because they may be native applications, and the memory usage that it utilizes, as well as the CPU usage. There are different ways or tools available in the market with the use of which we will be able to gather all this information and see if it fits with our performance requirements or not. As and when we start developing our performance plan, we keep our current usage in mind, but the other important aspect to keep in mind is the future usage of the application. And we have to do the capacity analysis for this future usage of the application, because based on this analysis, we will be able to identify the infrastructure needs and the other support that we need as part of the performance test. If we don't keep this in mind and start developing our application, till one point of time, our application would be working very smoothly. But once the traffic increases, our infrastructure may not be able to cope up with the increased traffic. So these are the two important aspects to keep in mind while developing performance test plan. Okay, on the next slide, I am displaying basic architecture of performance testing, where we have a load test tool, which basically enhances the master test controller, which will be able to call distributed agents located at different locations or across the globe, or depending on our requirements. All these remote agents will be calling the internet-based application, and based on the requests, internet application would respond. All this response will be gathered by the master test controller, and that's how the performance test reports would be generated. So this is the basic architecture of what performance testing is all about. Moving on, when I talked about the remote agents, when we want to do performance testing and when we want to publish our application across the globe, we need to do the performance testing. If we are hosting our servers in only one part of the globe, we need to do the performance test in such a way that we will be able to identify and create distributed virtual users across the globe, so that the performance experienced by different people across the globe would be measured, and those results will be analyzed by our technical team members to analyze if there is any issue or not. For that to happen, we need to create a distributed test infrastructure to cover different regions across the globe. We need to be able to distribute the performance test loads across different parts of the world to emulate the actual traffic that our application will be experiencing. For that to happen, there are different ways we could achieve the same thing. As a tester, we can start using the emulators or simulators, which would generate the virtual users or virtual load for us. Or we could use our partners if we have partners across the globe, we could start using the infrastructure to generate the load that we want as part of our performance testing. Other thing we could look for is crowdsourcing. We can take help from different people around the globe to generate the traffic for us, so that it'll basically simulate the virtual users that we would be accessing our application from across the globe. If none of these things work out for us, then we could use the services of outsourced infrastructure companies that they are providing outsourced infrastructure, and with the help of that, we will be able to achieve the load that we have planned for performance testing of our application. When we have defined the plan for testing the e-commerce application that we are testing, we have certain number of users in mind that we would be experiencing at peak load. But whenever we are creating our performance test plan, we need to account for peak load as well as higher load as well, to see if our application will be able to cope up with higher number of users as well or not. So all this, that's what we need to account as maximum number of users as part of our performance test plan. And then we can start with our performance testing. Once our performance testing starts and once we start receiving the results, one of the other important aspects of doing a performance testing is the results analysis. Not each and every performance tester would be able to do the results analysis, because just by looking at different graphs and different reports, we would not be able to judge if our application is working properly or not. So at that point of stage, we could take the help of performance test consultants that are out there to see if they have the experience and expertise to analyze the results and find out where the bottlenecks are. With the help of those consultants, if you are able to do that, if you are able to find out the bottlenecks, we can find out the different weak areas where the application needs to improve upon. With all these reports, just by looking at these reports, finding out different graphs, and just by looking at the request and response time for all this request performance tests, we will be able to define the weak areas. We will fine-tune those weak areas and repeat the process all over again to see if the performance of the application improves or not. Once that's basically an ongoing process, we have to tweak here and there and see if the performance results have improved and keep on working at that. So these are some of the different aspects that we need to cover as part of our e-commerce and social applications testing. Thank you for your participation. If you have questions, please go ahead with your questions.
Hi everyone, we would be open to your questions. We will be waiting for another couple of minutes for any questions, and before ending our interactive session, and for any further questions you might be able to still get in touch with us through email. Okay, thank you everyone. We would be happy to answer your questions through email. You could reach us on info@cygnet-infotech.com, and you can also download a recorded version of the webinar and the presentation shortly from our website cygnetinfotech.com. Once again, thank you everyone for joining in, and we hope you enjoyed the session, and we look forward to your participation in the near future very soon. Once again, thanks and have a great day.